the chairman of the Portfolio Committee on Budget, Finance and Investment Promotion. I was not invited to come here. I just came and I've been given the role to just say something. So I will say something. So in my submission, I will try not to deviate from our role as parliamentarians. As Budget Committee, we play an oversight role. We have got a role for legislation, and we represent you. We represent the masses, we represent the business community, we represent all of you. So I will make sure that I will not deviate from those three core roles of parliamentarians. We are seated here because of the monetary policy statement that was delivered by our governor. And why the monetary policy statement? It was because of currency volatility, high inflation, and low confidence in business. And we are here to ensure each other that we want to move together as a nation. So there are quite a number of issues. As monetary policy, when we got it as the committee, we sat down, I think it was on Monday, to look at the monetary policy statement as a committee. And we had quite a number of issues that we observed. So I will try to align what came from the committee and some of the issues that came out here. The first point, Governor, I attended the launch of the MPS. And I remember you saying very well that I'm not going to do someone's job. And as stakeholders, while we are here, what we have noted as a committee is we need rigorous implementation of the Know Your Client Charter by banks. Why I am saying this is, Governor, the business community loves you, and the business community has confidence in you. But we also don't want your job to be taken by the governor of the street bank. Because already they've started advertising. But you see, if you check, most of the transactions, they are happening through our banking platforms. They advertise, they transfer money through our banking platforms. Are we saying, as a nation, we are not in a position to come up with a national switch that can populate people's banking accounts? Because I've seen someone in the streets who has got literally a bank account in every commercial bank. You go to the streets, they will tell you where do you bank, and they will do immediate transfers. So the recommendation that came out from our committee is, I think there is need for us to deploy smart technologies, artificial intelligence, for you as a bank to be able to populate bank accounts and be in a position to monitor what is happening. The issue of deploying the police to police the policy may not work. Let's be smart. Then the other issue that came out is the promotion of financial inclusion and bank intermediation. I may not know the specific figure, but I think as the banking sector, you might be sitting on around $2.5 billion in nostro balances. You correct me on that. And I think we've got enough balances as a country. And we are saying the role of bars in here. What the general populace is complaining is the issue of bank charges. Honorable Governor, we applaud you for the $100, where you say if bank balances are $100 or below, they are not subject to bank charges. But the major complaining that is coming out is, there's someone who said to me mabengi enyu ava ma-real estate companies kupera kwemwedzi vari collecta rent. What the person was saying is, banks are there to just wait for month end to collect bank charges. And we are saying the core business of banks should promote financial intermediation, and there is need for the monetary policy to relook the issue of bank charges. Then the other point that came out is on cross-border transactions, the transfers. What is coming out on that is we need to promote bank use. We need to deal with the problem of money laundering. Can't we come up with a policy that looks at certain figures that should pass through the banking system, not us just receiving goods coming from outside and you don't know where the money is coming from. So cross-border payments should be encouraged to be done through our banking system. Then stakeholder involvement. If you look at the post-monetary policy workshops that we have done, if we have done that before the announcement, I'm sure we would have solved a lot of problems. The issue is we have got a tendency of consulting too much after announcement. We need to work together as stakeholders so that before announcement, the policy is taken into a lab, test it, test run it, and I'm sure when we do that, we'll be able to deal with some of the issues that are coming out here. So there is need for stakeholder engagement. We have done that with fiscal policy. They will start from budget strategy paper, they will go out to do the consultation, and we would want that to be done even with the monetary policy. Then the use of the ZIG. Honorable Governor, I think the elephant in the room, I know people have said they are only elephants, but the elephant in the room is confidence. The moment we announce that the ZIG will not be able to buy this, I think we would have lost it. The exchange rate is market-based. The discovery price is going to be determined by the market. And it is up to the market to embrace the ZIG in line with the market conditions. And I think this is very critical. The market will find its way. And I think for us, we are saying the acceptability of the ZIG is going to depend on how we allow the market to operate freely. So let's allow everybody to charge in ZIG. We should not exclude the fuel sector. Everyone should charge in ZIG. And I think this is very critical when it comes to confidence building measures. Then the other issue is SIE 60 of 2024. I mentioned it that day when you made the presentation, and I said the SIE 60 of 2024, presidential powers, temporary measures, they expire after 6 months. Which means, as central bank, you need to be up to your game to make sure that you align the laws before the expiry of 6 months. Because what it means is our ZIG will expire after 6 months. Then let's work on confidence building measures. The business community, I've heard your presentations here, saying the governor should walk the talk. Please, when the governor is walking the talk, walk with him. The problem is being spectators and specializing in criticizing. The business community, NGS1, Vision 2030 is very clear. At least you have got political will. His Excellency is very clear. The development and the growth of this country is going to be private sector led. And you have been given. So what is needed is, when the government has given you the policy platform for you to make money, you should make money. Let's not focus on speculation and future hedging positions. In order for our currency to be strong, we can only do that when we produce. What is needed is production. Yes, we can talk about all these other issues, but let's produce. And I'm happy that the governor is committed. Those who listened to his monetary policy statement, I'm sure you are all happy that the governor is ready to make this country work. Then my last point is on timely communication. You know, somebody was talking about the velocity of circulation, and I also looked at the velocity of circulation of news. You see, when an economy is responding to news, it shows that that is an efficient economy. And I think the Arab is that when this point was brought out, the governor said he was going to look into it. But I also listened to the presentation that has been given by Graham. You see, from the presentation that has been given by Graham, what I'm probably imploring on the governor, the business community, what is coming out is, as a country, I think for now we are managing under VUCA, where there is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. There is need for us to take all those issues into account as we manage. And I think this will take us forward. You have heard about the El Nino. I think you can see that there's an element of uncertainty, volatility, and all these issues. So, as we move forward, let's not give up. Currency stability comes from production. And let's support our government. Let's support government policy. I submit. Thank you.
Governor, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here. I'm just going to quickly raise a few points that were made in some of the presentations that you can consider in your address. So the first question was really around the calculation of the exchange rate. What role will the basket play? How is the basket made up? Will it be publicized? And what role will the market play in exchange rate determination? The next point is really, the market is obviously going to now test you in the next week or next 2 weeks to see, okay, can we really get foreign exchange for our legitimate invoices? How do you see that playing out? What will happen when ZIG becomes successful is that demand for ZIG will increase. How do you see that playing out? There's considerable concern within industry around the NNCDs for this auction obligations and the impact that will have on working capital, as well as the impact on those exporters who are keeping their surrender in US dollar equivalents and now have going to get 1 year NNCDs. What else might be done to preserve their working capital and help them in terms of building production? Then we've had some requests already for special financing. So somebody from the CFU was saying that we, in respect of El Nino, now need 24-month affordable money. What role will those kind of requests play in this new monetary policy? Are they appropriate? Then, lastly, the statutory limits. So there seems to be a couple of statutory limits which are at play here. One of them is the limit through which the government can borrow from the RBZ. That appears to be 20% of the previous year's revenue. And previous year's revenue in ZIG was about 80 billion. And then the other statutory limit is the new one in the presidential powers, which says that ZIG cannot be created in excess of reserves. But reserves are currently about 3 times the available ZIG. So when you take total reserves about 3 times the available ZIG, that's causing quite a bit of concern around the potential for ZIG creation even within the statutory limits. So how might that be addressed? So I think that's just a snapshot, and I'm sure more questions will come from the audience after your presentation. So over to you, Governor.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. First, I have to start by apologizing for coming late, but there are certain assignments which, when you are sent to do, you can say no. So that is exactly what I was doing between 7:30 a.m. and just now. But I'm very, very sorry to have kept you waiting, and I hope what I'm going to say is going to make good what I didn't do right. Right, maybe let me start by addressing some of the issues that were raised by Honorable Chilua, because he's the only presenter I listened to when I arrived. He did talk about consultation. Before coming up with this monetary policy statement, we consulted far and wide. Jimmy, you came to my office, where I was renting. And you presented a paper, and we borrowed extensively from that paper. So that is consultation. Chamber of Mines are here. They will testify that indeed we had sessions with them. We had sessions with the civic society. We had sessions with opinion leaders. And we even had to get a consultant from the World Bank to tell us what the structured currency is, how to put it in place, what is it that needs to be done before it is there. So, unfortunately, Honorable Chulua, I did not have the time to come to Parliament, to the Portfolio Committee, but I think by consulting the industry representatives, civil society, and so forth, we covered a significant population of those people who needed to be consulted. So, then let me come to the issues that you raised, Jimmy. You talked about the calculation of the exchange rate going forward. What we said in the monetary policy statement is that going forward, number one, the exchange rate is going to be market determined. And this is what has happened over the past 3 days since ZIG has been running. At the end of the day, we collect all the trades that the banks have done and at what rate, and we come up with an average for the day, and that is what we publish, and that is what becomes the opening rate for the next day. It is working. However, over and above that, in the back office, we are running a formula which is based on the imperatives that I have mentioned in the monetary policy statement. We are looking at the price of gold. We are looking at the exchange rates of the various currencies that are in the basket, including even the price of other metals that are in the basket. And we are looking at the inflation differentials between us and our trading partners. We put all that together, and we are tracking the exchange rate as it should be. As a central bank, what we'll then do is that if we think the market has pushed the rate too high, we can go in and intervene by ourselves to try and bring the market back in line. So, in time, dealers of the various banks that are operating in this country will know that when it gets to such and such a level, the central bank will intervene. But maybe they will not know. Because again, if the price of gold keeps going up and you are not pushing the rate up, we'll probably push the rate up to that level. But if it goes down, we'll also push it down to that level. But it's not just the price of gold. So you will never know when we are intervening and how. But by and large, let the market rule. market forces are going to apply it when it comes to the calculation of the rate going forward. You did say that the market is going to test us from next week or even from this week. We are ready. I said in the monetary policy statement that we have over 100 million US dollars in nostro balances of cash. As we speak right now, after conversion, the amount of ZIG that is circulating in the economy is less than 80 million US dollars. What it means is that as the central bank, we can buy all your ZIG, all of it. But then that's not the end of it, because you are going to come back for it because of the other complementary measures that we have done in conducting treasury, where come the June QPT, you are going to be desperately in need of this ZIG. And where will it be? At the central bank, because we will have sold all your ZIG to us. And guess what? Maybe we may just keep the exchange rate downwards to 1:10. So that by the time we get to the next QPT in September, you will realize that it's better to start accumulating ZIG now. One of the reasons also why I was late today is because already there is a bit of a market gridlock on ZIG. There is not enough ZIG in place to transact. So we're just saying, so how do we manage this? And that's why I kind of delayed, but over and above other things that I was doing. So if you want to test the market, if you've got a legitimate, genuine invoice, bring it to your bank. If it's not honored, you know my number, call me. How do you see demand for ZIG panning out? I think I've covered that. We agreed with Treasury that 50% of taxes are going to be paid in ZIG. And that on its own is enough to create a huge demand for ZIG. I've been given some numbers that in any given QPT, Treasury would normally collect about plus or minus 300 million USD. 50% of that is 150 million USD. There's only 80 million worth of ZIG in the market. So you are actually persuading me to do a bit of quantitative easing so that we can meet your requirements. But whatever we are going to do will be within the limit of the reserves that we have. NNCDs, there's been an outcome. Yes, we had to lock that money up. I know it's going to affect a few, some corporates, even some individuals. But my mandate is to keep the amount of money in circulation in check. I would rather inconvenience a few corporates than inconvenience 15 million Zimbabweans when the rate starts going wild again. My role is to stabilize the Zimbabwe dollar. And that is exactly what we are going to do. Let's start with the NNCDs arising from unfulfilled auction obligations. Just to prove to you that the people have not actually lost. Let's wind back to November when the rate was about 6,000. Let's assume that you bought 1,000 US dollars and you gave 6 million RTGS to the central bank. Today, we have converted your 1,000 US dollars at 33,000 and given you ZIG. Those who have got calculators can work out what you now have. You have 1,000 US dollars. But if you hadn't gone to the auction, that money would have disappeared in your hands because your 6,000, your 6,000 times 1,000, 6 million the RTGS would by now have been divided by the erosion that has happened in the exchange rate. It would be worth nothing. So you have hedged, and over and above that, you are going to get 7.5% interest, all in the interest of trying to protect this economy. When we look at this, let's not look at it from an individual perspective. Let's look at the nation. We are all going to have to sacrifice to make this thing work. If I'm going to release all this ZIG into the market, you know what it is going to do to the exchange rate, and you know what it is going to do to volatility. You know that the illegal foreign currency vendors are waiting for that, and we're not going to give them that chance. So, unfortunately, on that one, we are not going to budge. Whether it is NNCTs that have been issued to banks, whether it is NNCTs that have been issued for unfulfilled auction obligations or unfulfilled surrender obligations, for now, in the interest of the nation, let's keep them as NNCTs. As we grow reserves, we will be in a position to release those, but after the prescribed period. The request for special financing, in view of the drought, those are things that we can look at. We would welcome any paper that you can present so that as the central bank, we can look at it. There is concern that the formula for government borrowing as per Reserve Bank Act is such that if they were to come in, they would destabilize everything that we are doing. Yes, I agree. But what we are forgetting is that the Act does not say that the government is entitled to borrow that money. They will have to come to us as the central bank. We look at the reserves that we have, and we don't have to give them that amount. I think I made it very clear in my last engagement in the president of the payment sector, and he confirmed it. They don't have the power to force us to do anything. Our role is to be banker to them. If you cannot go to your bank manager yourself and say, I demand an overdraft of 10,000, it means the PS also cannot come to me and say, I demand an overdraft of that money. We have to say, are we able to do it within the ceiling that we have in terms of reserves, and also with regard to the amount of money circulating in the economy. But let's not even talk about that. The government has not come to the central bank to borrow. Well, for as long as I can remember, I've looked at the records of the central bank. They don't borrow. We actually have their money. Their credit balance is in the bank. So, in the likely event that they want to come to borrow, it will be on the assumption that we want to do it and we can do it within the limit of the reserves that we have. Okay, those are the issues that you raised. I was following the proceedings, and some of the points that were being raised were being sent to me, but I don't know how you want us to proceed going forward. Do you want people to ask questions?
Yes, we can move to questions. Unless you wanted to make some general remarks.
Well, I think let's proceed by way of questions. It's easier that way.
Great, thanks, Governor. Thank you very much. Thanks for being very frank about those questions. Perhaps if you keep with the microphone, and then we can just ask people we'll maybe take 3 questions at a time. So who would like to go first? Sorry, my eyesight isn't brilliant. There's a question over there.
It's within the bounds that you deem reasonable. What is reasonable? To limit the amount of ZIG in circulation. I think one of the ways that we can rebuild faith and confidence is by making these instruments that have been issued to these individuals and companies tradable, so that over time, if it looks like they're going to preserve value and on maturity will actually be worth what we hope will be worth, people can take a view and trade them. Those who are liquid and who like the interest rate of 0.5% can then buy them off those who are holding them, who may actually need the liquidity before maturity.
Basically, I mean, one of the things, the sentiments that is going around is the bankruptcy of confidence and trust in the ZIG. We've had introductions of the bond notes, in the past, led by the 200 million African Bank alone. We've had the introduction of the RTGS ZWL, starting at a rate of 2.5 to the dollar or so. And now we've got the ZIG coming in 13.56. The question is, what makes it different this time around? ZIG will be tested. As businesses, we will be taking our invoices to the banks for, for foreign payments on our obligations on imports. It will be tested. How difficult is it to stabilize this and really build the confidence that we so seek? And we all vying for your success, but where do we stand? How can we promote and how can you guarantee, if you can, the success of the ZIG, given the past experiences that we've had? We are coming into the ZIG with mixed emotions. Thank you, sir.
ZIG is backed by foreign trade balances, gold and other precious minerals. We opened the vaults at the central bank for the first time ever when HE came to inspect. We showed the nation that we have 2.5 tons of gold. These are worth 185 million US dollars at today's gold price. We also said we got 100 million plus worth of foreign currency balances. That's 285 million. The ZIG that is circulating in the market is 80 million, which means we are more than 3 times covered. That is the difference between ZIG and the other currencies that have been circulating in the past. We also said in the monetary policy statement that any increase in ZIG in circulation has to be met by a corresponding increase in the reserves that we are holding. How are we going to increase those reserves? Currently, royalties for all precious minerals paid by the various mining companies are being paid in kind to the central bank. If you produce of gold, pay gold. If you produce of diamonds, pay diamond. If you produce of platinum, pay platinum. What we then do is that for those commodities that we cannot hold in the vaults of the central bank, like platinum, even diamonds, we immediately sell and we buy gold. So we are going to be increasing our reserves from that source. Those royalties are for the account of the central bank. So yes, we will continue to anchor ZIG on, number one, those precious minerals, and number two, the foreign currencies that we have. So that is the difference between what used to happen in the past and what is going to happen now. And we also did say, and even it was stated in the structural instrument that introduced ZIG, that at least once a year, our auditors will come and audit and confirm that the ZIG that is circulating in the economy is backed by gold and reserves that are quantifiable, and they will have to quantify that. And those results will have to be published for all to see. So if you are looking for confidence, it's going to come from there. Over and above that, confidence cannot be legislated. It's got to be earned. And the fact that you are all going to be looking for ZIG to pay your taxes should instill confidence, because if you then find yourself at the wrong side of the interest rate matrix, or the exchange rate matrix, let's say you need ZIG on 2 July and the rate has moved to 11, you will start accumulating ZIG. I did say that if I were a retailer, every ZIG sale I make, I want to keep in my account waiting for QPT, because I don't want to have to hand it at a time when it is expensive. So I hope I have answered your question on that. Exchange rate determination, I don't know where you missed me. The exchange rate is going to be market determined. That's number one. So every day, banks will have their bid and offer prices. At the end of the day, we collect everything that the banks have done, and it's based on supply and demand. Also, 25% surrender, that is coming from the market. We did say in the monetary policy statement that we'll take half of it and send it to the market so that there is no printing of money when we buy the 25% surrender. And again, it will be on a willing seller, willing buyer arrangement. That way, the rate will be determined. But as a central bank, we also have our exchange rate forecasting methodologies, where we have stated that our rate is a function of the price of gold, is a function of the exchange rates amongst the other currencies, is a function of the inflation differentials between us and our trading partners. So you put all that together, we will be like in the back office computing an exchange rate to say if we were taking all these factors into account, what would the exchange rate be like today? So if we find that, according to our calculation, the exchange rate should have been 13.5, but according to the market, it's 13.51. You do nothing, it's within range. But if we, for some reason, the market has gone out of kilter, we, as the central bank, can go in and sell currency at the right rate, and that will then put the exchange rate back on track. I don't know if I'm being clear on that, but that's how it is going to happen. But by and large, it is the market that's going to determine the exchange rate. Mr. Zengeli, NNCT is tradable. Yeah, we'll think about it, but not now. Thank you.
Right. Governor, I don't know if you've got any questions that came through whilst your team was briefing you, which you may want to address.
Okay, there were a number of issues. Okay, there was mention that fiscal dominance and quasi-fiscal operations need to be resolved as a matter of agency. I think that was during Mr. Mverecha's presentation. I think we made it very clear in the monetary policy statement that all previous QFO obligations have been transferred to the Ministry of Finance, no longer to do with the central bank anymore. And going forward, we are not going to be involved in that. I think you did mention that I don't want to do someone else's job, and I still don't want to do someone else's job. There was also the emphasis on the need for fiscal complementary for ZIC to succeed. Or we're talking about what is the fiscal side also supposed to do to make sure that ZIC succeeds. And the starting point is that we have said at least 50% of taxes will be paid in ZIC, and then we see how we move from there. The governor should walk the talk and be more transparent to build confidence. Okay, I'm telling you that I will walk the talk. And if I don't, next time we have another seminar like this one, you can tell me where I am missing. RBZ to gradually build foreign reserves and to have transparent quarterly annual targets of reserve accumulation. You are preaching to the converted. I have just outlined to you how we are going to be building those reserves. Number one, the royalties that we are getting, and number two, from the 25% surrender, I said half is going to go into the market. The other half is going to be bought by the Ministry of Finance, with half of it meeting their forex obligation, and the other half is going to be used to build the reserve-based reserves. concise communication of clear objectives of the Reserve Bank, setting targets that can be believed by the public, will restore RBZ confidence. Again, I think if you read the monetary policy statement, we started by defining what the problem is. Then we said, what are the objectives? What is it that we are trying to achieve? Currency, exchange rate, and price stability. Then we said, what measures do we put in place? The people sitting on the RBZ table will tell you that after the monetary policy statement, we have now set up an implementation committee within the central bank, which is going to look at each and every measure that we put in place and say, what is it that we need to do, and track it daily, weekly, monthly, to say, are we on track? Over and above that, this country has a liquidity management committee comprised of members from the central bank and from the Ministry of Finance. It is going to be meeting weekly, looking at the cash flow that is circulating in the economy, and then seeing what it is that is supposed to be done. This is the same committee which has established that as we now head towards the salary day, if we didn't do what we have done this morning, we were going to see a serious liquidity crunch. We don't want that to happen. We also don't want to see a situation where the measures we have put in place result in deflation. That is not the whole idea behind the monetary policy statement. The other one is a repetition. Monetary policy alone cannot be the panacea to solving macroeconomic stability. There is need for complementarity. Yes, I think I did talk about that. We need to develop a clear roadmap for using ZIG to purchase fuel. Honestly, I don't know why there is this hype about just fuel. With your ZIG, you can buy all the other things you want to buy. This economy is 80 to 85% dollarized. What this means is that on average, if I were to search your pockets, I would find $85 in US dollars and maybe $15 equivalent in ZIG. So where's the problem? But having said that, I did announce in the monetary policy statement that yes, we have 31 December 2030 as the date when the multi-currency arrangement comes to an end. We don't want it to be an overnight event. We want to start building more and more demand for the ZIM dollar, such that maybe if we can do 70-30 by end of this year, 70% being forex, 30% being local, maybe 60-40 by end of 2025, and when we get to 50-50, people will be indifferent as to which currency they are using. And then when we get to 2030, we don't even have to announce it. People will be using their ZIG. And in the process, as we travel along that path, that's when we will say maybe fuel can also be included in that, in commodity that can be sold in ZIG. We don't want fuel queues. Things are working, so let it be. What are the mechanisms to be used by government to create demand for ZIG? I think we answered that. Okay, all the other things are just repetitions.
Great. Let's take another round of questions before we go to the vote of thanks.
At the publication of USD inflation and Zimbabwe dollar inflation, there are some among our constituencies that are actually desperately looking for these numbers, and they are willing to pay us to do some gymnastics to come up with the usable instruments Probably I'm just wondering whether now we can be bold enough now. I'm sure everyone now is now used to the idea of blended inflation. I don't think it will do anyone any harm if both the USD inflation and the ZIG inflation are published. The other issue which Jimmy did not mention, arising from what has been mentioned, is about statistics. Right now we know the Deposit Corporation survey, the Central Bank survey, the numbers that we know are December 2023, but I'm sure you will know that we're now in April 2024. Can we begin to see a new culture at RBZ, where probably the numbers are going to be published in time? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. My question is on the fuel again, unfortunately. Is it actually illegal to sell the fuel in ZIG? And I'm also assuming that these fuel companies will still need to also pay 50% QPDs in ZIG, or they are not going to be subjected to the same requirements? Thank you.
I'm from the Horticultural Development Council. Pleasure to meet you, sir. We are one of the sectors that contributes the 25% compulsory liquidation into the pot. And our question is, or our main issue, Governor, is that our productive sector is an ICU. So the question from our members is, what measures are you putting in place to stimulate or reinvigorate the productive sector, mainly so that we can attract the $1.2 billion investment that's required to reach our 1 billion target by 2030. Thank you.
This, guys, is that going forward, obviously ZIG is a new currency. There is no comparative. So you are going to have published month-on-month ZIG inflation, because that's all you can get. You can't compare ZIG with the RTGS. It's completely different. Then, of course, you will have the USD inflation. And so those are the numbers that we have recommended, and our research department has been working very closely with the guys who produce those numbers. Fuel, is it illegal to sell in ZIG? No, it's not illegal. You can sell in ZIG if you want. And if you were to sell in ZIG and you were to come to your bank to say you want to pay for an invoice to import fuel to be paid, it will be paid. It's not illegal. And the 25%, what measures are we doing to reinvigorate the productive sector? We are open to suggestions. If you've got anything that we have in mind, please, let's have a paper, we'll look at it, and then we'll see what can be done and what cannot be done. It's in the interest of everyone to make sure that the productive sector is reinvigorated. It's a no-brainer.
Thanks, Governor. Is there any last words you'd like to say before we invite Mr. Manungo to do a wrap-up?
Yeah, just two things. First of all, I was getting questions from people who were saying, oh, so what is the reporting currency in Zimbabwe? The reporting currency is ZIG. That is our national currency, and that is the currency we are going to report. It's a stable currency, and I don't see any problems with that. Then I also want to say, I've been following social media. I don't mind, because if you say it's not going to work and you don't give us an alternative, how do you expect us to progress? We all want ZIG to succeed. If you don't want ZIG to succeed, it means you are not a patriotic Zimbabwean. We are tired of a currency that is in turmoil. We are making this work. And if we have a stable currency, we can all then start to save again. So those are the few words that I want to say. Thank you.
Governor, thank you very, very much. Right, I'd like to call the Deputy Chief Secretary in the Office of the President, Mr. Manungo, to give us some closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you to the Master of Ceremonies for guiding today's discussions And I want to thank Honorable Chidua, who is the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee. I would also want to thank the governor of the Reserve Bank, Dr. John Sherman. Welcome, Governor. And you're coming in at a very critical time in terms of steering this economy in consistency with the expectations of the citizenry and in consistency with the vision outlined by His Excellency the President in terms of our vision 2030 for an empowered upper middle income society. I would also want to thank the President of the CZI, Mr. Macheza, the President of the Chamber of Mines, Mr. T. Gono, the President of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Kamungeremo, the President of the Bankers Association, I think today represented by the CEO, the Acting Executive Secretary of the National Economic Consultative Forum, Mr. Mzite, the CEO of the CZI, Ms. Kuvarika, all captains of industry and commerce that are here, colleagues from government, and all the other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I think for me, it's just to thank you for this gathering, because consistent with our National Development Strategy, number 1, your president has emphasized that he is a listening president. And he has also emphasized his requirement on all of us in government to ensure that no individual and no place are left behind. So the dialogue that you have been having this morning into this afternoon is consistent in ensuring that all the voices, all the constituencies are listened to. So the governor of the Reserve Bank, the colleagues at Treasury, the minister, the secretary, and all the other colleagues there, they are all taking stock of the submissions that you have been making. It is important that we embrace all the submissions that we make, so that at the end of the day, this dialogue positively feeds into the monetary policy statement that was announced by the governor of the Reserve Bank, Dr. Mshayirana. Having listened to the presentations and the various submissions that have been made this morning, I would like to assure you that as government, we stand ready to consider all the issues that you have raised as stakeholders and inputting them in the formulations that we make with regards to the national policies that are being spearheaded by His Excellency President Mnangagwa. The President values each consultative process as he views that the submissions that you make ensure that we move together with a common purpose, goal, and towards our vision 2030. Through such dialogue as what we have had this morning and this afternoon, we are surely destined to achieve end of this critical discussion. You have a listening president, and you have a listening. But as stakeholders, we also have obligations. As we welcome the governor
into office, as we welcome and embrace the ZIG, we need each and every one of us to avoid a situation where we undermine the positive gains that the new ZIG currency represents by way of overcoming the challenges of high inflation that has undermined investment, that has undermined savings. So let's not behave like there is a Zimbabwe with some Zimbabweans, and we are observers from outside. So we are in this together. And we need to take stock that, if I can borrow from the new governor in terms of, he emphasized that under his watch, each and every one of you, in terms of the constituencies that you are leading, those constituencies are under your watch. So let's not use opportunity over those watches that we have by undermining stability that we need in the macroeconomic environment. So we need to make this ZIG policy framework that was outlined successful. Clearly, there will be perceptions that maybe the governor would have missed, that treasury would have missed, and we welcome, and they will welcome submissions that embrace improvements to ensure that no one is left behind and no constituents is left behind. So let's input into the governor in the Reserve Bank, let's input into the Ministry of Finance to try and ensure that we are all moving towards the realization of the macroeconomic stability that we all cherish. The governor has been very innovative, and listening to Honorable Chidua, I think he highlighted the issues that if we are going to drive this economy, we need investment. And for us to drive the investment agenda in this economy, we need to generate the necessary savings. So the issue of savings mobilization takes center stage. Because if you are in mining, if you are in agriculture, or if you are in any other sector, you need first and foremost to look to the domestic financial system to provide and generate the necessary savings that underpin the investment that will then lead to the creation of jobs, the production that we need, and the generation of foreign exchange. I think it was only yesterday that His Excellency the President was being alerted to some of the challenges that those in mining, those in agriculture face by way of the limited capacity of our financial institutions to be able to generate and avail the necessary savings that underpin their investment. So if I can speak to the banking community, if you don't become more proactive in terms of savings mobilization, then you'll find that year in, year out, we look outside to try and underpin and underwrite the investments that we have. We cannot have meaningful investment in an environment where the average citizen, where the average householder feel that their money is safe in their pillows or under their beds. So the initiative that the governor came up with to try and ensure that the role of the banking community is to ensure that you play your part in mobilizing the savings. It does not matter that I've got $5, but the $5 that I have, the $10 that you have, all those need to be mobilized and find their way into the domestic financial system so that they underpin the investment that we have. But if you've got a situation where an ordinary householder feel if they leave $500 in the bank and wait up to the end of the year, they find themselves in a situation where they owe the bank for the money that they left with you, then we are shooting ourselves and we are undermining the quest for the realization of an upper middle income society. So on that note, I would want further again to appeal to yourselves that let's rally behind our new central bank governor. Let's rally behind the new ZIG currency to ensure that there is stability in the way we conduct business. I thank you.
Thanks very much. Right, so on those inspiring words, we bring our session to a close. We stand on the cusp of a very exciting new era, so we really hope that in our next session, we'll be celebrating the success of ZIG. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning. Yes, Dr. Mshawan, we have seen the business community complementing this new structured currency, the ZIG. From your own point of view, what is the way forward? The private sector and the RBZ are working together in ensuring that all your plans succeed.
Yeah, the way forward is that we must embrace ZIG as the future. This is a currency which is going to be stable. This is a currency which is anchored on reserves, and these reserves comprise gold, precious metals, and foreign currencies that we are holding. And as I've said before, we have more than enough cover for the currency that is in circulation at the moment. We have under $80 million of money in circulation in ZIG, and we have over $285 million in cover. So at any one time, the central bank should be able to meet any forex obligations, legitimate forex obligations for people who may want to pay for services and raw materials that they would have imported.
You mentioned the gridlock on the ZIG currently. Can you kindly explain, and also how much of the ZIG is in the market?
Right now, there is an equivalent of 80 million ZIG on the market. So you multiply $80 million by the exchange rate of about 13.5. That is the amount of ZIG in circulation. So the gridlock obviously comes from the fact that some customers may not have enough ZIG in their accounts for them to pay for the foreign exchange obligations that they may have. Some banks may also not have that much liquidity after the conversion, and as the central bank, it is our responsibility to make sure that the market is at all times well-oiled and functional.
But is there any indication of how many trades are happening, like US dollar trades?
Offhand, I haven't got the exact numbers, but I can tell you that ZIG has been trading every day from Monday up to today, and we are compiling the exchange rates as they come from the banks at the end of each day.
And on inflation, you mentioned that you've made recommendations that will be published in the start end of April, or?
Well, that is up to the people who produce the statistics. All we did as Reserve Bank research is to give them the parameters.
Yeah. The 10% markup currently being charged by retailers, do you think that should still continue?
To me, it's no longer, it's neither here nor there. Why am I saying so? It's because if ZIG is stable, which it is, and if you are a retailer and you are going to put a 10% markup on ZIG, you are going to be out of the market. Your products are going to be very expensive. So the law does not say retailers must put the 10% markup. It says they may. If you don't put it a 10% markup, it's allowed. You are not breaking the law.
Governor, you made an interesting comment in your Q&A part of your speech, where you said that the bond notes and RTGS and ZWL was not backed by anything. Could you explain what you...
Yeah, what I mean, if you recall, the definition of a structured currency is a currency that is backed by either a foreign currency or a basket of commodities. In the past, we never had that policy where our local currency was backed. So we did not maintain sufficient reserves to back the currency. You may have had a situation where at some time the amount of currency in circulation was higher than the amount of reserves held by the central bank. And that is what we have corrected by introducing the structured currency.
You also mentioned as well that in terms of, you said that if anyone has challenges and they're legitimate, in the past banks have often not given foreign currency, even for ZWO. So how you plan to tackle that challenge if someone does give you a call?
Why would banks not give you the foreign exchange? Because if we have it at the central bank and they request from us and we give them, why would they not give you? I think they would only not give you because your ZIG account would not be funded. Otherwise they should. If your invoice is a legitimate invoice, they should give you. What they will not do is to just give you, exchange your ZIG for US dollars for you to put in your pocket. That will not happen.
What's your assessment of ZIG's first week?
Well, I was actually surprised that ZIG has strengthened from the starting exchange rate up to now. But actually, no, let me not say I was surprised, because the price of gold has also been going up and ZIG has been trading in line with the movement in the gold price, which is what we expect because it is predominantly backed by gold.
Governor, on government borrowing, you said that our government had not borrowed from RBZ in the past or recently, gave you some period. But the 2024 budget showed that government had a significant chunk of domestic borrowings. Can you tell us the source of those borrowings?
Yeah. When you talk of domestic borrowings, you should differentiate it from government borrowing from the Reserve Bank. When government issues treasury bills, they are borrowing from the domestic market, but they are not borrowing from the central bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
As we said in the monetary policy statement, the interest rates that we announced are going to be reviewed by the monetary policy committee when it next meets. If we didn't get the yield curve right, which I don't believe, then we will amend it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Enjoy your time in office.